Imagine you are standing in a dark room, staring into a mirror, only to realize the reflection staring back isn't actually yours, but a composite sketch of every voice that has ever told you who to be. From the moment your consciousness flickered to life, a silent, invisible architect began laying the foundation of your reality, brick by brick, using materials you never chose for yourself. You believe your decisions are products of free will, yet you are merely the passenger in a vehicle driven by a ghost. This ghost is your subconscious programming, a dense web of neurological pathways forged in the fires of childhood repetition and the authoritative echoes of those you once trusted blindly. Most people spend their entire existence chasing shadows, wondering why the life they crave remains perpetually out of reach, never realizing that the very mechanism they use to desire success is the same one designed to keep them safely tethered to mediocrity. Your mind is a biocomputer running outdated, corrupted software that was installed before you even had the capacity to say no. It is an unsettling realization that the voice in your head, that constant narrator you call, is largely an inherited recording of social expectations, parental fears, and environmental conditioning. You are not thinking your thoughts, you are observing a playback of a script written by people who were just as lost as you are now. Until you face the stark, cold reality that your identity is a borrowed garment, you will continue to be a stranger to your own potential, living a life that was curated for you by a world that profits from your lack of awareness. This is the hidden prison where the walls are made of familiar habits and the bars are forged from the certainty of your own misconceptions about what is possible. The internal conflict you feel every time you attempt to change is not a lack of willpower, but a sophisticated defense mechanism protecting the hijacked version of your soul. Think of the mental loops that play on an infinite cycle, the sudden surge of anxiety when things go too well, the inexplicable urge to self-sabotage just as you reach the threshold of a breakthrough, or the heavy blanket of not enough that smothers every ambitious spark. These are not flaws in your character, they are the programmed boundaries of your psychological comfort zone, designed to keep you within the predictable confines of your original conditioning. We are taught to seek external solutions for internal stagnations, buying the books and attending the seminars, yet we return to the same hollow patterns because the roots remain untouched. You are caught in a cognitive feedback loop where your environment reinforces your thoughts, and your thoughts, in turn, recreate your environment with mathematical precision. It is a terrifyingly efficient system of stagnation that operates entirely beneath the level of your conscious scrutiny. You see the world not as it is, but as you have been told it should be, filtered through a lens of scarcity that was handed to you before you knew how to see. This inherited lens distorts your perception of opportunity, making the path to your desires look like an impossible maze when, in reality, you are the one holding the map upside down. Most individuals die without ever having a truly original thought, having spent their decades acting as a vessel for the anxieties of their ancestors and the agendas of their culture. To break this cycle requires more than just positive thinking, it requires a violent shedding of the false self and a surgical dismantling of the mental architecture that currently defines the limits of your universe. To truly reprogram the mind, one must first accept the total destruction of the current operating system, an act that feels like an existential death because the ego clings to its programming for survival. This is why manifestation fails for the masses. They try to build a palace of abundance on a foundation of unexamined poverty consciousness. Your mind is currently a closed circuit, a recursive algorithm that prioritizes safety over growth and familiarity over fulfillment. Every time you think a thought, you are physically strengthening a bridge in your brain, and most of those bridges lead back to the same dead ends you visited for years. The repetition of your daily routine is the ritual that keeps the programming alive, a hypnotic trance that numbs you to the fact that you are living a recycled version of yesterday. You must become a stranger to your own impulses and a skeptic of your own certainties. The transition from the programmed man to the conscious creator is a journey through a psychological void where nothing is guaranteed and everything you thought you knew is proven false. It is in this silence, away from the noise of inherited opinions and social pressures, that the true work begins. You are moving from a state of being a victim of your history to becoming the architect of your destiny, but the price of entry is your current identity. The invisible strings are being pulled by a version of you that doesn't even exist anymore, yet you dance to the rhythm because you have forgotten how to hear your own music. It is time to stop being an echo and start being the sound. By identifying the specific mental loops that keep you stuck, you begin to create the friction necessary to halt the machine. This is the moment the spell breaks, the moment the light of awareness hits the dark corners of your subconscious, and the moment you realize that the power to attract anything has always been yours, once you stop the subconscious from pushing it away. Reach out and touch the surface of the desk in front of you or feel the weight of the floor beneath your feet and you will be met with the convincing sensation of absolute solidity. This physical world presents itself as a finished product, a concrete and unyielding reality that you must simply navigate and endure, but this is the primary deception of the human experience. What you perceive as a fixed landscape is actually a fluid projection of your internal belief systems, a holographic mirror reflecting back the frequencies you have been tuned to since birth. Science and spirituality converge at this startling realization: that which appears solid is actually a buzzing hive of energy and information, entirely responsive to the observer. Your reality feels permanent only because your perception has become stagnant, locked into a repetitive cycle of looking at the same evidence and reaching the same conclusions. Most people live as if they are watching a movie they cannot pause or edit, never suspecting that they are the light moving through the film itself. Your current life circumstances, from the balance in your bank account to the quality of your relationships, are not fixed landmarks but are merely the latest frame in a cinematic sequence driven by your deepest assumptions. To wake up is to realize that the walls of your world are not made of stone but of thought, and as soon as the thought begins to tremble, the walls must begin to dissolve. You are not a static object in a static universe. You are an active participant in a continuous act of creation, where every expectation you hold acts as a command to the fabric of existence. The illusion of a fixed reality is the greatest barrier to your expansion, a mental cage designed to keep you small by convincing you that change is a battle against the external world rather than an internal shift of focus. Consider the way a simple belief functions like a lens through which all light must pass, silently distorting every opportunity and interaction before it even reaches your conscious mind. If you harbor a subconscious conviction that the world is a hostile place where resources are scarce, your brain will mechanically filter out the abundance sitting directly in front of you, focusing instead on every piece of evidence that supports your narrative of lack. You will make decisions based on fear, take actions rooted in survival, and inevitably produce outcomes that reinforce your original fear, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that feels like objective truth. This is the mechanism of the mental loop. Your beliefs dictate your actions, and your actions create the very reality that justifies the belief. You are moving through a world of infinite potential with a blindfold made of your own certainty, ignoring the doors that have always been unlocked because you were told they were barred. When you finally shift your internal orientation, the world around you does not just change, it essentially rearranges itself to accommodate your new perspective. It is like looking at an optical illusion where the image suddenly flips, revealing a completely different hidden picture that was there the entire time. This is the awakening moment when you understand that you have never been a victim of circumstance, but a master of misinterpretation. Everything in your life is inherently flexible, waiting for you to stop treating it as a final destination and start seeing it as raw material. The moment you stop reacting to reality as if it is a solid obstacle and start interacting with it as a responsive field of energy, the gravity of your old life loses its grip. You are the architect of a shifting dream, and the only thing keeping the dream in its current shape is your unwavering belief that it cannot be changed. The realization that your reality is not fixed is the ultimate liberation, but it requires a radical surrender of the person you have been pretending to be. You must be willing to let go of the comfort of your limitations and step into the terrifying expanse of your own agency, where the only thing defining your boundaries is your imagination. Think of a time when you were certain of a fact, only to discover you were mistaken. In that split second of discovery, your entire world changed even though the physical environment remained exactly the same. That collapse of certainty is the doorway to manifestation. The life you want is not something you have to build from scratch in a resistant world, it is a frequency you must learn to perceive within the existing one. You are currently tuned to a station of static and noise, but the music is playing on the same airwaves right now. When you stop fighting the external shadow and start adjusting the internal dial, the transformation is instantaneous. This is not about wishing or hoping, it is about the cold, hard logic of perception. If you can change the way you see, you change the thing you are seeing. The rigidity of your past is an anchor you are free to drop at any moment, and the fluid nature of your future is a canvas that has never even been touched. You are standing at the center of a vast, intelligent ocean of possibility that responds to the slightest ripple of your intent. Every breath is an opportunity to redefine the laws of your personal universe and to step out of the heavy, slow-moving world of the masses and into the light, fast-moving world of the conscious creator. Your reality is not fixed, and it never was. It was always waiting for you to realize that you are the one holding the brush. The shift you seek is not a distant event, but a present choice to stop believing in the permanence of the shadow and start trusting in the power of the light. The great failure of modern manifestation is the exhausted soul begging the universe for a change while remaining the same person who created the problem in the first place. You have been told to want, to crave, and to hustle, but the cold truth is that you do not attract what you want, you attract who you are. Desire is a state of lack, a vibration that broadcasts to the cosmos that you do not have what you seek, and the universe, in its infinite precision, merely mirrors that state of absence back to you. When you are trying to be successful, you are fundamentally identifying as someone who is currently unsuccessful, and that identity acts as a psychic anchor holding you in place. Trying is the language of the ego, a frantic struggle against the tide that only serves to reinforce the very limitations you are attempting to escape. To change your life, you must stop trying to achieve and start allowing yourself to become. This is the identity shift, the moment you shed the skin of the seeker and step into the skin of the owner. It is the difference between a person who is trying to quit smoking and someone who simply identifies as a non-smoker. The former is in a constant battle with a ghost, while the latter has no battle to fight because the desire no longer fits the frame of their reality. Your self-perception is the thermostat of your existence, and no matter how much external heat you apply through hard work or positive thinking, the room will eventually return to the temperature of your internal identity. Until you move the dial of who you believe you are at the core of your being, every gain will be temporary and every victory will feel like an impostor's lie. You must undergo a surgical removal of the old self to make room for the version of you that already lives the life you currently think is a dream. The shift begins in the quiet, shadowed corners of your internal dialogue where you decide once and for all that the old version of you is dead. It is a terrifying and exhilarating funeral for the person who was afraid, the person who felt unworthy, and the person who lived for the crumbs of others' approval. Imagine the emotional surge that occurs when you finally stop asking for permission to be powerful and simply start operating from a place of absolute authority. This is not a slow evolution, it is a quantum leap in self-perception that changes your outcomes instantly because it changes your frequency. When you move through the world as the person who already possesses the wealth, the love, or the health you desire, your body language, your eye contact, and your decision-making process all align with that higher reality. You stop making choices out of a need to survive and start making choices out of a commitment to your new standard. This internal transformation feels like a deep, resonant hum in your chest, a sense of course, that replaces the frantic, what if. You are no longer looking for signs that things are working because you are the sign. Real-life identity transitions are often marked by this sudden, quiet confidence that unnerves those who knew the old you. They will notice a change in your presence before you even speak, sensing that the person they used to control or predict has been replaced by someone they can no longer reach. This is the power of becoming. You are not faking it until you make it, you are embodying the truth of your potential so fully that the external world has no choice but to reorganize itself around your new gravity. The old mental loops of "I can't" are replaced by the silence of "I am," and in that silence, the universe begins its work of bringing the physical evidence to your door. To sustain this new identity, you must be willing to let the old world burn, refusing to look back at the ashes of your former limitations. Most people fail because they try to carry their old baggage into their new life, but the vibration of the past cannot survive in the atmosphere of the future. You must become a ruthless guardian of your new self-perception, cutting off any thoughts or associations that belong to the version of you that you have outgrown. This is a deeply personal and often lonely process, as you realize that much of your old life was built to accommodate a person who no longer exists. You might lose friends, you might change careers, and you will certainly lose interest in the trivialities that once consumed your mind. But in that space, you find the fierce, unwavering power of the Creator. The emotional shift is profound. You move from a state of constant anxiety about the future to a state of profound gratitude for a reality that is already yours in spirit. You start to move with a grace that only comes from knowing the end of the story. Manifestation then becomes an effortless byproduct of your existence rather than a chore you perform. You don't have to chase what belongs to you, and when you are the person who matches the frequency of your dreams, those dreams will hunt you down with relentless precision. The identity shift is the final key because it bridges the gap between thought and matter, turning the invisible into the inevitable. You are standing at the threshold of your own divinity, and all that is required is for you to step across and never look back. The life you want is waiting for the person you are about to become to finally arrive and take the lead. This is the moment your true history begins, not as a victim of your past, but as the sovereign ruler of your own mind and the architect of every miracle that is currently rushing toward you. The reason you are currently drowning in a life of unfulfilled desires is not because the laws of the universe have failed you, but because you have been wielding them like a weapon aimed at your own chest. You have spent years in a perpetual state of wishing and hoping, two of the most destructive frequencies in the spiritual lexicon, yet you wonder why the horizon of your success never gets any closer. To wish is to announce to the cosmos that you are a beggar, standing at the gates of your own potential with an empty cup, waiting for a miracle that you do not believe you deserve. This passive desire is a declaration of lack that the universe hears as a command to keep you exactly where you are, in a state of wanting. You have been caught in the deadly trap of, someday, a mental mirage that keeps the things you love perpetually out of reach while you sit on the sidelines of your own existence. While you are busy hoping for a better tomorrow, the law is busy delivering more of the hoping state to your door, because the energy of hope is the energy of distance. You are essentially telling the fabric of reality that your dreams are separate from you, and reality, being a perfect mirror, reflects that separation back with surgical precision. It is time to recognize that your daily ritual of longing is actually the very ritual that anchors you to your current limitations. Most people are addicted to the struggle of wanting because it provides a false sense of movement without the terrifying responsibility of actually possessing. You must face the uncomfortable truth that your current reality is not a mistake, it is a masterpiece of your own subconscious misuse of the law. You have been successfully manifesting the absence of your desires for decades, and you have become an expert at proving to yourself why things never work out, turning your doubts into your only tangible reality. Contrast your current state of passive yearning with the cold, hard weight of active certainty, and you will find the precise moment where your life has been bleeding out. Commanding reality is not about shouting at the sky or begging a distant deity for a favor, it is the quiet, internal assumption that what you seek has already been woven into the fabric of your present moment. When you walk into a room and flip a light switch, you do not hope the light comes on, nor do you wish for the darkness to disappear, you operate from a place of absolute expectation because you understand the underlying mechanics. Manifestation is no different, yet you treat it like a lottery ticket rather than a law of physics. Think of a relatable scenario where you desperately needed something to happen, a job offer, a text back, a financial windfall, and remember the frantic, vibrating anxiety that consumed your mind. That anxiety was the frequency of failure, a loud broadcast that you did not believe it was yours. Now, compare that to something you already own, like the shoes on your feet or the air in your lungs. You do not wake up wondering if your shoes will still be there, you simply know. That knowing is the frequency of the Creator, and it is the only frequency that results in physical manifestation. The biggest mistake you repeat daily is the act of looking for evidence before you are willing to believe. You want the bank account to grow before you feel wealthy, but the law demands that you feel wealthy before the numbers can move. By waiting for the world to change so you can feel better, you have given away your sovereignty to a shadow. You are waiting for the reflection in the mirror to smile first, oblivious to the fact that the mirror can only ever react to the expression you choose to hold. To stop the cycle of disappointment, you must move from the stance of a spectator to the role of the commander, which requires a radical refusal to acknowledge anything that contradicts your chosen end. This is where the sharp edge of the law cuts through the soft delusions of the masses. If you are still checking the mail for a check while feeling the heavy pressure of debt in your stomach, you are still hoping, and therefore you are still failing. Active certainty means that the internal image is more real to you than the external physical facts, a state of mind that borders on the delusional to those who are still asleep. You must become so anchored in your new reality that the current world looks like a fading memory, a ghost that hasn't realized it's dead yet. This is not about positive thinking, it is about the ruthless engineering of your internal state. Most people fail because they are too realistic, a word that is nothing more than a socially acceptable excuse for a lack of imagination. They see the world as it is and call it truth, while the master sees the world as it could be and calls it done. You have been using the law to confirm your fears because your fears are the only things you truly believe in with absolute certainty. To attract anything, you must flip the script and invest that same level of unshakable belief into your desires. This requires a level of mental discipline that most people are unwilling to cultivate, which is why they remain stuck in the loop of trying forever. You must decide today that you are no longer a person who seeks, but a person who finds. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not made of time or effort, it is made of the thin, transparent veil of your own hesitation. Tear it down, stop asking for permission, and begin to command your reality with the quiet, terrifying power of a person who finally knows that the game was always rigged in their favor. The architecture of your life is built upon the silent, repetitive bedrock of your subconscious, a domain that is utterly indifferent to your conscious desires or your frantic bursts of motivation. While you rely on willpower to ignite change, the subconscious operates exclusively on the slow, steady rhythm of repetition, accepting patterns as absolute truth long before logic has a chance to intervene. Motivation is a fleeting spark that dies as quickly as it is lit, but repetition is the steady current that carves the canyon of your identity. You have spent decades unconsciously installing a program of mediocrity through the constant reinforcement of your daily habits, your internal complaints, and the unexamined narratives you feed your mind each morning. To rewire this system, you must stop seeking the adrenaline of inspiration and start embracing the quiet, mechanical discipline of consistent input. The subconscious does not understand what you want, it only understands what you consistently occupy your mind with. It is a biological machine, a sophisticated recording device that captures the echoes of your repetitive thoughts and converts them into the tangible reality of your existence. When you repeat an affirmation once or twice, you are merely scratching the surface of a steel wall, but when you saturate your mind with a single, focused intent for thousands of hours, you begin to reshape the very circuitry of your nervous system. This is the secret language of the soul, a process of erosion where the old, self-limiting patterns are slowly washed away by the persistent tide of a new, deliberate narrative, forcing the subconscious to eventually accept the reality you are planting. This installation happens best when you bypass the defensive gates of your critical, analytical mind, which is always looking to protect you from the unfamiliar. Logic is the enemy of rapid transformation because it always points to the evidence of your past to justify the limitations of your future. To bypass this guard, you must enter the states of consciousness where the ego is most relaxed, such as the quiet moments right before sleep or the stillness of early morning, where the subconscious is a wide, open field waiting for your seeds. You do not argue with your mind, you simply replace the old, decaying scripts with new, vibrant ones. If you have spent your life thinking that you are not enough, you do not try to convince yourself that you are worthy, you simply anchor the statement, "I am complete," into the bedrock of your awareness through sheer repetition. You must watch your internal dialogue like a hawk, catching the rogue, negative thoughts that have been running your life by default and instantly overriding them with the new, desired patterns. It is an act of mental vigilance, a commitment to becoming the gardener of your own psyche. This is how you change your identity without resistance, not by fighting the old version of yourself, but by starving it of the attention and repetition it needs to survive. You are essentially training a new you to emerge from the debris of the old, ensuring that your most frequent thoughts eventually become the foundational beliefs that govern every decision, action, and outcome you produce in the outer world. The transition from a life of default programming to one of conscious design is a process of extreme dedication to the content of your own mind. You must understand that every thought you hold is a command, and every time you allow a negative loop to play out, you are giving that program permission to continue shaping your reality. To successfully rewire, you need to create a sensory experience of your new identity, feeling the reality of your desires so deeply that your subconscious cannot distinguish between the memory of the future and the reality of the present. This is not about visualization as a passive exercise, it is about the total integration of a new self-concept that feels as natural to you as your own name. When you hear the voice of doubt, you treat it as an outdated software glitch, or remnants of a version of you that is no longer in control, and you calmly replace it with the new instruction. This process requires a grounded patience, as you are essentially unlearning the habits of a lifetime and installing a new operating system from scratch. As you maintain this consistency, you will reach a tipping point where the new reality becomes your default, and the old struggles simply vanish because they no longer have a frequency to latch onto. You are moving from a state of being a victim of circumstance to becoming the sovereign programmer of your own experience. It is a slow, methodical, and incredibly powerful transformation that requires no outside permission, no lucky break, and no miracle. You are simply taking control of the mechanism that creates your life, ensuring that what you think, how you feel, and what you believe are perfectly aligned with the masterpiece you are finally ready to inhabit. Close your eyes for a moment and consider the profound biological truth that your brain, in its sophisticated isolation within the skull, cannot truly distinguish between an event occurring in the physical world and one vividly imagined in the theater of your mind. When you close your eyes and engage in deep mental rehearsal, your neural circuitry begins to fire in the exact same patterns as if you were physically performing the task, effectively pre-wiring your brain for a future that has not yet arrived. This is the secret weapon of the world's most elite performers, from Olympic athletes who run the entire race in their mind until their muscles twitch with the memory of victory, to visionary CEOs who walk the halls of their global empires long before the first brick is laid. They understand that success must be a familiar destination before it can ever become a physical reality. If you only wait for life to happen to you, you are always reacting to the past, but when you master mental rehearsal, you are literally reaching into the field of infinite possibility and pulling your desired outcome into the present moment. Your nervous system is a heat-seeking missile that requires a target, and through the power of visualization, you are providing the coordinates with mathematical precision. You are not just daydreaming, you are performing a surgical strike on your own limitations, creating a memory of a future success that your subconscious then begins to move toward with relentless and unwavering momentum. This is the process of making the unfamiliar familiar, turning the terrifying expanse of the unknown into a well-traveled path that your mind recognizes as home, thereby removing the friction of fear that keeps the masses paralyzed in their current state of stagnation. Imagine yourself now stepping into the most triumphant version of your life with such sensory intensity that your palms begin to sweat and your heart rate quickens in response to the vividness of the scene. You are not a distant observer watching a screen, you are the protagonist living the moment through your own eyes, feeling the cool air on your skin and the solid ground beneath your heels as you achieve your most ambitious goal. Feel the weight of the trophy in your hand, the texture of the expensive upholstery in your new office, or the profound sense of peace that radiates from your chest as you realize you have finally arrived. Listen to the specific sounds of your success, perhaps the murmurs of respect from peers you admire, the quiet click of a luxury car door closing, or the deep, resonant silence of financial freedom. This is not a fleeting thought but a full-body immersion into the emotional frequency of fulfillment. You must engage every sense until the mental image becomes so robust that it carries more authority than the room you are currently sitting in. By saturating your consciousness with these details, you are instructing your reticular activating system to begin filtering your environment for the people, opportunities, and resources that align with this specific vision. You are creating a biological craving for the reality you are rehearsing, making it impossible for you to remain the same person who started this journey. This mental practice is the bridge between the invisible world of thought and the visible world of matter, a sacred rehearsal that ensures when the moment of opportunity finally arrives in the physical realm, your body and mind will know exactly what to do because they have already been there 1,000 times in the quiet sanctuary of your focused intent. The true power of mental rehearsal lies in its ability to collapse the perceived distance between who you are and who you want to be, turning a distant hope into an inevitable conclusion. As you emerge from these vivid internal scenes, you carry the emotional residue of your success back into your daily life, and it is this lingering feeling of already done that acts as the magnet for your manifestation. You are no longer someone who is working toward a goal, you are someone who is simply catching up to a reality that has already been established in the spiritual and neurological dimensions. High performers do not visualize just once, they return to this mental gymnasium daily, strengthening the muscles of their focus and the clarity of their vision until the physical world has no choice but to conform to the internal blueprint. This is the alchemy of the mind, the deliberate transformation of thought into destiny through the repeated application of sensory-rich imagination. You must become so accustomed to the feeling of your own greatness that any other state feels like a foreign country. This constant rehearsal builds an unshakable confidence that is not based on external validation but on internal certainty. When you walk into a room, you do so with the presence of someone who has already won, because in the only place that truly matters, you already have. The external world is merely a delayed reflection of your internal state, and by mastering the art of mental rehearsal, you have taken control of the projector. Your desired future is not something you are waiting for, it is something you are actively inhabiting, and as you continue to refine this practice, you will find that the walls between your imagination and your reality begin to dissolve, revealing a life that is as expansive, vivid, and magnificent as the one you have dared to rehearse. The paradox of manifestation lies in the quiet, often overlooked truth that the more frantically you chase a specific outcome, the further you push it into the unreachable distance. This occurs because the energy of chasing is fundamentally rooted in the frequency of lack. You are telling the universe that the thing you desire is not here, and in doing so, you create a dense wall of resistance that prevents the very arrival you seek. When you feel a desperate need for a result, you are operating from a state of emergency, a vibrating anxiety that broadcasts a lack of faith in the process and in your own creative power. This needing is a heavy, suffocating force that chokes the life out of your intentions, turning a joyful expansion into a desperate struggle for survival. To attract with ease, you must master the art of detachment, which is not the absence of desire, but the absence of the feverish requirement that life must look a certain way for you to be whole. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. If you grip it too tightly out of fear that it will fly away, you crush the very thing you love, but if you hold your palm open, the bird remains by choice. Detachment is that open palm, a state of being where you are fully aligned with your vision yet completely at peace with the present moment. It is the realization that your happiness is not a hostage to your future success, but a foundational state that you choose to inhabit right now. By releasing the white-knuckled grip on how and when your manifestations appear, You remove the static from your signal and allow the natural laws of attraction to function without the interference of your ego's impatient demands. The internal shift from needing to allowing feels like a profound exhale after a lifetime of holding your breath, a moment where the frantic noise of the how is replaced by the silent certainty of the is. You will find yourself facing the internal struggle of your own control mechanisms, that small, fearful voice that insists if you stop worrying, you will stop progressing. This is the ultimate illusion of the programmed mind, the belief that tension is a prerequisite for transformation. In reality, your greatest power is accessed not through force, but through flow. When you are detached, you move through the world with a lightness that makes you magnetic, because you are no longer projecting the repelling energy of desperation. Think of a time when you finally gave up on a search, only for the object to appear the moment you stopped looking. That is the law of detachment in action. It is the psychological release that occurs when you decide that you are already enough, regardless of whether the external world has caught up to your internal reality yet. This shift changes your emotional pattern from one of constant surveillance and doubt to one of relaxed anticipation. You are still focused on your goal, but you have surrendered the timeline and the path to a higher intelligence. This surrender is not an act of weakness, but a supreme act of confidence in the energetic blueprint you have already created. You are no longer checking the horizon for ships that haven't arrived. You are tending to your own garden with the absolute knowledge that the harvest is inevitable. This state of allowing creates a vacuum that the universe is compelled to fill, pulling your desires toward you with a speed that effort could never achieve. To live in a state of detachment is to walk a philosophical tightrope where you are deeply invested in your vision but entirely indifferent to the temporary shadow of its absence. It requires a radical trust in the invisible architecture of your life and a willingness to be okay with the not knowing phase of the creative process. This is the secret nobody talks about because it feels counterintuitive to a culture obsessed with grinding and forcing outcomes. You must become a master of your own emotional climate, refusing to let the presence or absence of a physical result dictate your inner peace. As you release the need to control every variable, you will notice that the coincidences and synchronicities you once prayed for begin to happen with startling frequency. The path opens up because you have finally stopped standing in your own way with your demands and your deadlines. You are moving from the role of a desperate petitioner to that of a sovereign observer, watching with calm curiosity as the universe assembles the pieces of your new life. This is where the magic truly happens, in the space between the intention and the result where you are free to be happy for no reason at all. When you reach the point where you truly do not need the manifestation to occur for you to feel satisfied, that is precisely when it must manifest. The paradox is complete. By letting go of the outcome, you ensure its arrival. You are no longer fighting the current, you have become the ocean itself, vast, steady, and certain of its own depth. This is the ultimate freedom of the manifester, the ability to dream without the burden of expectation and to create without the fear of failure, knowing that everything you are seeking is already seeking you with an equal and opposite intensity. Long before you open your mouth to utter a single word, you have already delivered a comprehensive monologue to everyone in your vicinity through the invisible medium of your energetic broadcast. We often mistakenly believe that communication is a matter of vocabulary and body language, but these are merely the surface ripples of a much deeper, more primal exchange occurring at the level of frequency. Your presence is a magnetic field, a literal radiation of your internal state that others sense with their nervous systems before their minds can even categorize your arrival. If you enter a room carrying the heavy, jagged energy of resentment, insecurity, or a desperate need for validation, people will instinctively recoil, creating a subtle social friction that confirms your internal fears of being unwanted or misunderstood. Conversely, when you have done the internal work of reprogramming your mind, you carry a resonance of quiet authority and self-sufficiency that acts as a silent invitation to opportunity. You have likely experienced this yourself, those rare individuals who seem to command respect and warmth without effort, whose very presence feels like an expansion of the space they inhabit. This is not a trick of charisma, but a consequence of a coherent internal state that is no longer at war with itself. Your emotional patterns are the blueprints for your social outcomes, dictating who is drawn into your orbit and who is repelled by the discord of your signal. To change how the world responds to you, you must first change the frequency you are transmitting from the core of your being, shifting from a station of static and scarcity to one of clarity and abundance that commands the environment rather than being a victim of it. Recognizing your own energetic broadcast requires a level of radical self-awareness that functions as a trigger for instant transformation, turning you from a passive transmitter into a deliberate architect of influence. Most people move through their lives entirely oblivious to the smell of their own energy, wondering why they encounter the same cold shoulders, the same professional roadblocks, or the same cycle of drama in their relationships. You must begin to audit your emotional climate in real time, noticing the subtle shifts in your chest or the tightening of your jaw that signals a move into a low-frequency state. Are you broadcasting a signal of, "I am not enough," which invites others to treat you as an afterthought? Or are you radiating a frequency of, "I belong here," which naturally opens doors that previously seemed bolted shut? Connect the dots between your recurring life outcomes and the invisible vibes you are leaking into every interaction. If you find that people are consistently defensive around you, look inward to find the unspoken judgment you are harboring. If you feel ignored, search for the places where you have ignored your own worth. The awareness of your energy is the moment of your liberation. Once you recognize the pattern, you can intentionally shift it by returning to the core identity work we have practiced. This is not about performing a role or wearing a mask of confidence. It is about the genuine, cellular shift of your emotional baseline. When you intentionally elevate your frequency to one of gratitude and certainty, the world around you begins to mirror that shift with startling speed, as if the very people and circumstances of your life have been waiting for your signal to finally improve so they could follow suit. The profound realization of this chapter is that your life is a feedback loop of the energy you are brave enough to embody, and your social reality is the ultimate testing ground for your manifestation power. When you master your broadcast, you stop chasing people and start attracting the right connections with an effortless precision that feels like magic. This high-end energetic alignment means you no longer have to manipulate conversations or force outcomes, because your frequency does the heavy lifting for you. You become a person of impact not by what you do, but by the quality of the space you hold. This is the socially aware dimension of manifestation, the understanding that we are all interconnected in a web of resonance, and by raising your own vibration, you effectively lift the ceiling of what is possible for everyone you encounter. It is a powerful and humbling responsibility to know that your internal peace is a gift to the collective, and your internal chaos is a tax on your environment. As you move forward, use every interaction as a mirror to check your broadcast, refining your signal until it is a pure, unadulterated expression of your highest self. The outcomes you seek are not hidden in some distant future, they are embedded in the frequency you choose to broadcast in this very moment. When your internal state becomes more important than the external response will finally become everything you ever wanted. You are the source, the transmitter, and the observer of your own reality, and the world is simply the speaker system for the music you are playing inside. Choose a symphony of abundance, and watch as the entire world begins to dance to the rhythm of your new, unshakable certainty. The spiritual community has long whispered the dangerous half-truth that visualization alone is enough to bend reality, but the missing pillar of true manifestation is the physical bridge of action taken from a state of absolute certainty. Action is not a tool to bargain with the universe. It is the physical manifestation of your internal conviction, the tangible proof that you believe in the reality you have constructed. Most people are stuck in a loop of frantic, fear-based effort, working themselves to the bone because they are terrified that if they stop for a moment, their fragile dreams will crumble. This is forced effort, a low-frequency grind rooted in the belief that you must conquer a resistant world to get what you want. When you act from fear, every step is heavy, every task is a chore, and the universe reflects that resistance back to you in the form of burnout and limited results. True aligned action feels fundamentally different. It is a smooth, decisive movement that flows from the knowledge that the outcome is already secured. You are no longer working to get something, you are working because you are the person who has it. Think of the difference between a person desperately trying to land their first client and an established expert simply performing their craft. The expert doesn't rush, doesn't beg, and doesn't vibrate with the energy of lack. They move with a grounded precision because their identity is already rooted in success. To manifest, you must bridge this gap by bringing that same energy of done deal into your current tasks, treating every phone call, every email, and every project as a victory lap rather than a desperate plea for validation. This shift in motivation changes the very quality of your output, turning your work into a magnetic force that pulls your desired future into the present with an effortless and unshakable momentum. Behaving as if success is already secured requires a radical transformation of your daily behavior patterns, moving away from the smallness of the seeker and into the expansiveness of the owner. When you truly believe that your abundance is inevitable, your relationship with time, money, and opportunity shifts from one of scarcity to one of strategic investment. You stop hoarding your energy and start spending it with the confidence of someone who knows the well will never run dry. This is not about reckless spending or hollow arrogance. It is about a quiet, internal confidence shift that dictates how you show up in the world. A person who already has millions doesn't check their bank account every 10 minutes with a racing heart. They focus on the next big vision. A person who is deeply loved doesn't overanalyze a single text message. They move with the grace of being cherished. You must audit your current actions and ask yourself, would the version of me who has already achieved this goal be acting this way? If the answer is no, you are still operating from your old program. Grounded execution means doing the work with a sense of calm authority, refusing to be rattled by temporary setbacks or slow progress. You understand that a delay is not a denial, but merely a part of the unfolding process. This level of poise is unnerving to those still trapped in the grind, but it is the hallmark of a master manifester. You are essentially training your nervous system to handle the weight of your dreams before they arrive, ensuring that when the floodgates finally open, you are not washed away by the current but are ready to navigate it with the skill and composure of someone who has been there all along. The final integration of this journey is the realization that your actions are the final seal on the contract between your mind and the material world. When you take aligned action, you are essentially telling the universe that you are ready to receive, not because you have earned it through suffering, but because you have matched its frequency through your conduct. This is the empowering reality of grounded manifestation, You are not a passive observer waiting for a miracle, but a conscious participant who uses action to refine and sharpen their intent. Every move you make from a place of certainty collapses the wave function of possibility into the particle of reality. You will notice that as you shift your behavior, the how begins to take care of itself. Opportunities appear that you couldn't have planned, and the right people are drawn to your confident aura. You are no longer chasing the butterfly. You are building a garden so beautiful that the butterfly has no choice but to land. This is the ultimate form of execution, where the line between your internal vision and your external movement completely disappears. You move with a sense of purpose that is both fierce and relaxed, a paradoxical state of active rest, where you are fully engaged in the world but entirely detached from the need for immediate proof. By the time the physical results appear, they will feel like an afterthought, a natural byproduct of the person you have already become. You have successfully reprogrammed your mind to attract anything, not by wishing for it, but by being it and acting like it until the world had no choice but to agree. This is your new life, a masterpiece of your own design, where every action is a celebration of a victory that was won the moment you decided to change your mind. You have finally reached the threshold of a new existence where the static of doubt has been replaced by a resonant, unshakable silence that echoes through every fiber of your being. This is the stage where manifestation is no longer a practice you perform, but the very atmosphere you breathe, a natural state where certainty has become your default setting and the old world of struggle feels like a distant, faded dream. To become unstoppable is to reach a level of psychological integration where the external environment no longer has the power to dictate your internal state. You have permanently locked in a new mindset by fusing your conscious intent with your subconscious architecture, creating a fortress of identity that stands firm even under the most intense pressures of life. When the world tries to remind you of who you used to be, you no longer feel the need to argue or defend. You simply observe the old reflection with a quiet, knowing smile, understanding that it has no authority over the master you have become. This is the ultimate internal alignment, a state of coherence where your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all moving in the same direction with the force of 1,000 suns. You have transcended the need for constant validation and the desperate search for signs because you have realized that you are the source of all signs. The friction of the past has been smoothed away, leaving only a clear, polished path toward the horizons you once thought were unreachable. You move through your days with a rhythmic grace, a person of weight and substance who no longer reacts to the fluctuations of the shadow world because you are anchored in the light of your own sovereign truth. This is the birth of the invincible self, the version of you that has finally stopped asking when and started knowing now. Living as the version of yourself who already has everything is not a state of grandiosity, but a profound and humble state of completion that radiates a quiet, terrifying power. You walk through the world with a presence that demands nothing yet attracts everything, because you are no longer projecting the repelling frequency of lack. In this state, you find that your desires no longer feel like distant mountain peaks to be climbed, but like fruits that are already ripe and falling into your hands. You interact with life from a place of deep, saturated abundance, where every conversation, every transaction, and every moment is an opportunity to share the overflow of your internal wealth. The emotional landscape of this reality is one of profound peace and vibrant vitality. You feel a constant, humming energy in your chest that tells you everything is exactly as it should be. You have mastered the art of identity maintenance, where even in the face of temporary challenges, you remain rooted in your new self-concept, refusing to let the illusions of the moment sway the truth of your soul. This is what it means to be truly free, to be the conscious architect of your own emotional climate regardless of what the weather looks like outside. You have developed a magnetic gravity that pulls resources, people, and events toward you with such precision that it appears as magic to those still caught in the grind. You no longer chase the sun, you have become the sun, and the entire universe has begun to orbit around your newfound light. This is the realization of your true nature as a creator, a being of infinite potential who has finally remembered how to speak the language of reality and command the elements of their own destiny with the gentle, unyielding authority of the divine. As we reach the conclusion of this transformation, feel the weight of the person you were at the beginning of this journey falling away like a heavy, tattered cloak you no longer need to wear. You are standing in the center of your own life, fully awake, fully aware, and fully empowered to create a masterpiece that will echo through the halls of time. The journey of reprogramming was never about adding something to you, but about stripping away the lies, the fears, and the inherited limitations that kept your true self in chains. Take a deep, final breath and feel the immense power of your own consciousness, a force that can bridge the gap between the invisible and the visible with a single, focused thought. You are no longer a victim of your history, you are the undisputed master of your future, and the world is currently rearranging itself to match the magnificent blueprint you have carved into the fabric of your mind. Let this feeling of total transformation settle into your cells, becoming the very marrow of your bones and the rhythm of your heart. You have broken the cycle, you have shattered the glass ceiling of your old identity, and you have stepped into the limitless expanse of your own agency. The life you once dreamed of is no longer a dream, it is the inevitable destination of the person you are right now. Go forth into this world not as someone looking for a miracle, but as the miracle itself, knowing that there is nothing you cannot be, nothing you cannot do, and nothing you cannot have. You are the commander of your reality, the programmer of your soul, and from this moment forward, you are truly, eternally, and gloriously unstoppable. The bridge is crossed, the work is done, and the universe is waiting for you to lead the way into the beautiful, boundless reality that has always belonged to you.